What's going on, y'all?
What is up, y'all? We are back again, and what are we going to be talking about?
All right, so this one might be actually Jehovah's Witness friendly.
Okay.
Because we actually going to talk about, like, what are some of the positives that came out of being a part of this cult? Yes. Even though it was a cult and there was a lot of bad experiences, like, we like to take the good with the bad. So it's like, did anything good actually come out of this, even though it was a bad situation?
Yeah, and the truth is there was some good that came out of it, and I think that it's important to talk about this too, because a lot of XJW, platforms, like, they're not going to talk about this, but we need to talk about it, because having a balanced view is what's going to help you to move forward in your life too, and not stay stuck in, like, all of the bad things that happen. Instead, you could take what you learned and take it with you in this real life.
Yep, so we'll get into it, and this is going to be a two-part video. One to be the positives, and then we'll drop another video talking about the negatives.
Okay.
So let's stay positive on this one. Now, starting off, we can kind of look at, especially if you grew up with Jehovah's Witness, of course it had its bads.
Yeah.
But you were so sheltered, and being sheltered has its pros and cons.
Yes.
Because it's a lot that you can miss out on, but then it's a lot of social cues and just regular everyday smarts to catch on that you might miss out. But for the most part, if you're following all the strict rules, like, you are less likely to be, like a teen mom or little stuff like that.
That's
or you less
exactly
likely to go to jail.
Yes.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Things like that. And I could say from my personal experience, I became a Jehovah's Witness when I was turning 20. And at that same time, everybody I'm hanging around was going to prison at the same time. And it's like, that's kind of what made me go, all right, let me try this religion thing. Because I know about Jehovah and all that from my family, but I never tried to get this thing a try.
Right.
And I was at a point where it's like, everybody around me, we all are into the same stuff. Right. And little by little, everybody's going to jail for the same thing. Or people getting killed for the same thing. So it's like, maybe this is a sign that I need to study the Bible. Like, a lot of people get religious when turmoil and things happen. They like, well, let me see, maybe this is a sign from God, because you always can heard stuff about God. So that's, I can say that's a positive. It keep you out of certain situations. Yeah,
and I would have to agree, because whenever I really started to take, like, I've always been a Jehovah's Witness, but whenever I really started to take it serious was whenever I was like 15, 16, that age. And so in that age, that's usually whenever you're getting in, like, the most trouble as a teenager.
Yeah, like you exploring life.
Yes, exactly. So although I got in trouble, like, later on, for the most part, like you said, I wasn't a teenage mom, you know what I mean? I wasn't out there in these parties and, doing drugs, like, like that kind of stuff did not happen until way later in my life, to where I was, with boys and things like that. So I think that that's definitely a positive. Like, it keeps you sheltered, and it keeps you out of certain trouble that you might have gotten into if you weren't a Jehovah's Witness. It's almost like just like they say, like, a bit of a protection in the moment.
It is.
Like, I wasn't getting drunk on the weekends at, 16 years old and being in, like, dangerous situations, because I was going to Jehovah's Witness parties.
Yeah, like, it was corny parties.
Yeah, so, like, it definitely served as a protection for that time of my life.
It did. You just reminded me of something. I remember, like, my grandmother jinxed me low-key, but when I was, I want to say 21, 22-ish, our grandmother was like, be careful, because, you start meeting friends and you start to hang out. Yeah. And she was like, this is the age where people start getting in trouble. Yeah. She was like, your mom and them was the same age when her and her friends, because my mom and all her friends, one by one, all got this fellowship. Right. But the same thing ended up happening with me and the people I'm around. One by one, we all got this fellowship. Yeah. So it was like 5 to 7 of us within a year. Yep. Just all back to back. And this stuff, and this is Jehovah's Witness trouble. Yes. Like, not real life trouble, but things like that, it just gets prolonged till later on.
That is
such
like, a good point. As we were talking, that's what I was thinking about. Like, it's happening at a later time, whereas maybe you would have gotten in trouble in normal life in your teens, where now it's happening like, you know, mid-20s maybe.
Yeah, and it's not, and the funny thing is, like, it's not trouble.
No, it's like normal stuff. You know what I mean? It's like going out and drinking with your friends at a bar on a weekend and the elders find out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's, you know, bumping cheeks. Like, it's stuff like that.
Yeah, that's all it is.
I think a compliment that we seem to receive a lot, I know I get it a lot, is like how well versed I am or how I'm good at public speaking. You know what I mean? Yeah. And that's definitely something that the organization helps you with, okay?
It does.
After all of those talks, after having to do comments, after having to speak to strangers at their door that you don't know nothing about, and being prepared for that, like, that's definitely something that you can take in your life, you know, is the public speaking, because a lot of people are just, they're afraid. And I was like that in like middle school. I did not like speaking in front of people. Like every time I hated it. I hated it. Every time that we had to do like a presentation or something, I would just like forget everything that I had to say, and I would be looking at my paper like this, not making any eye contact. You know what I mean? I'd be like this, like. Blah, 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 blah.
It's difficult. I think I agree with that. Even think about, I don't know if it's still called the Theocratic Ministry School, whatever it's called now, but back then you would get points of counsel in the was it the BE book, the red book, and so for those that don't know, during the week it would be multiple series of short example talks. Like, it would be two sisters that would have to sit at the table like they conducting a Bible study. Yeah. Or it would start with one person doing a Bible reading. They had to read usually about a chapter depending on the book. Right. It wasn't probably like a 5-minute talk at the most. Then you had the two sisters. Then you had a number 3 talk. That's when you have to give a talk referring to a topic in the Bible, but it's not just reading. You making eye contact. Right. And you get a point of counsel like, this week you're working on eye contact, or this week is enunciating pronunciation. Yeah. You know, and so afterwards you would get counseled on it, and all right, next time you'll have to work on so and so. So your speech became a lot better that way. I
used to say it on the slips, like what you were working on.
It was a part in the book you had to research on some tips. So this wasn't for your benefit. This is for the organization's benefit. So that way you are better at recruiting people. Right. Like, it was to benefit them. So I even think things like that helped me become a speaker. And I even think about, like, in school, I was good at speaking in class, I think, because I was more like a class clown anyway. And my view was, I'm just looking at information I already know and I already studied on, and I'm just telling you what's going on, like slideshows and things like that. And I'm talking to my peers. It's like, I crack on y'all every day anyway. Like, now
and you're a natural leader, so it was like,
thank you, man.
It took me a while to come into that of myself. You know what I mean? Like, it was not like that for me.
Just think about it's different with the organization, because we was teaching stuff we didn't even understand. Facts. But if you got some information that you know, all you doing is repeating what you already know and hear to the person that's learning from it.
Yeah, that's so true.
Especially if you know the people, and if you don't know the people, even better, because I ain't got to see y'all again. I'm out.
That's so true.
But that definitely helped. And then your reading skills get polished up too, because you were forced to read every single day.
And not just that, you're reading words that we don't use in the natural, like, English language.
That's
you know
true.
What I mean? So you're like having to learn how different words are even pronounced, you know?
Yeah, like, Bethlehem.
Like, think about
Nebuchadnezzar.
Right, like, think about biblical words. And you know, something else that I thought about too that I feel like has been a benefit is just like learning the Bible. Like, that's one thing about Jehovah's.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
I know, me too. But that's one thing about Jehovah's Witnesses that, like, I think separates them from a lot of the Christian groups too, is that they do a deep dive, even though it's their Bible, like, they do a deep dive into the Bible. So, like, you're gonna know about a lot of the stories that happen in the Bible, like, and you're learning about this from when you're a kid to when you grow up.
You're forced to.
Yes. And so for me, it has helped, because, like, any Christian or anybody that wants to talk to me about the Bible, like, I can talk to them about it, and I know that I have like a pretty decent understanding of what the heck happened in the Bible. You know what I mean?
Even though it's a bunch of BS.
Yes, I can flip to any scripture in the Bible quickly. Like that's not something that a lot of people can do, and it's not even something that you think about, but it gives way to your credibility whenever you're talking about the Bible.
It does. I forgot about that. You can find, if they say, because you are constantly going from scripture to scripture, and most people, like in churches, you just listening.
Yeah.
But if you tell somebody, all right, go to 2 Corinthians.
They don't know where it's
You can
at.
go, okay, Isaiah's here. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
and we had to practice that. Like, I learned that in my Bible studies. Like, it was every single week we learned where 5 books are.
Yo, I forgot about that.
Every single week until we got to the end of the Bible. And, like, that was just something that we did. And so a lot of people can't do that.
They can.
Yeah.
Even though the book is a waste of time, but don't care how you feel about it. Another one. Even though it's the wrong kind of discipline, you learn discipline in this organization.
Oh.
Even if it's, for example, don't talk to your mama. You learn, like, even though this goes against what I want to do, you learn to do it.
Yeah.
And even after the fact, leaving this organization, you can become disciplined in things you need to be disciplined in.
Yeah.
Because you've had to do it before. Instead of things that you're
forced to be disciplined in, you know?
Yeah.
But even things as simple as, like, your personal study every week, you know, like other people may not know if you're doing your personal study, but you know, so you become disciplined to like having a routine. I feel like, yeah,
that is important, I guess, for life in general. Now you can't give yourself excuses. If a person wants to, I don't know, go walking 3 times a week, you can't make an excuse, because if you were able to follow these strict rules that don't actually benefit your life at all, you could do something beneficial for you that's actually good. You know what I'm saying? So
I agree.
Now we can shift gears to, on the way out, some of the things that really, became a positive.
Yes, and we're gonna do this in the next video, but the opposites of a lot of these can also be a negative, but we're gonna focus on how it is a positive. So I think one of the first ones would be just coping with loneliness, and what that really teaches you is that you're okay by yourself. And that is a superpower. In today's world, like, that is a superpower, to just be okay with your own company. And for some people, it can make them really introverted, but I also think that it allows you to learn about yourself, and if you are okay with you, like, you will be okay in life.
Definitely. If you are not okay with you, you're not going to be okay at all. A lot of people surprisingly can't be by themselves too long. No,
they have to have distractions at all times, because when they're by themselves, it's like, all of the real things begin to creep in. But whenever you learn how to cope with that, you're able to work through all of those, the dark thoughts that you may have, or the questions of the unknown. Like, you get to work through that, and I think that's really important. It
is. It's we always use the analogy of like a Freddy Krueger or something like that. In the movie, a horror movie, they got to keep running, and then once you stop, eventually Freddy Krueger is gonna catch up, and you got to keep running, running, and eventually you're gonna get tired of running, and you got to fight. And Freddy Krueger is yourself. It's easy to keep running from what you deal with, or to running from the real you and keeping yourself distracted. That's running from Freddy Krueger. But when you come home and you by yourself, or when you laying down at night, or when you're looking in the mirror, Freddy Krueger is like, I'm back. And at some point, you got to face who you are, and just and once you face it, because a lot of times the things we worry about, once we deal with it, it's like, oh, that's nothing.
Literally.
And you learn a pattern. Like, the last 10 issues that came up in my life, it was tough, but I was able to cope, and I was able to make it through in life, and it's okay. And you got to look at your next obstacles the same way. Every hurdle is something that you can jump over, even if it's tough.
Yes, and especially if it's something about yourself that it is that you don't like. Like, people get stuck in just like not liking something about themselves. But the beautiful thing about this life is you could change whatever it is that you want about yourself. Like, if you're like, okay, I don't like the career that I'm in, like, I don't like that I don't make this much money, I don't like that, I'm this way with people. Those are all things that are in your control to change. So, like, change them.
Yeah, and change, people don't understand change is uncomfortable.
Yeah.
If change was easy, we all be changing.
Okay.
At the drop of a hat. That's the challenge of it. That's what gives you the story to tell of how you overcame something. And that's what encourages other people. It's not supposed to be, life shouldn't just be that easy.
Yeah.
Otherwise, what's the point of this stuff? We can't encourage each other. We can't upbuild. I can't learn from you. Like, things got to be challenging sometimes.
Yeah, and I think, actually, I'm going to touch, we'll touch on this in the next video, but something that you learn is, like, when you're in a high control group like this, you are forced to try to ignore, like, the dark parts about yourself.
That's so true.
And the thing is, whenever you acknowledge them and recognize that they are there, there's nothing that, like, anybody can tell you about it anymore. Like, this is a part of me, you know what I mean? It doesn't mean that it always has to be at surface, you know what I mean? Like, we all have good parts of ourselves, we all have bad parts of ourselves, you know, like, you might be dealing with, like, a temper or, like, anger issues. That's not something that is always showing, but you know that that is something that exists within you, you know what I mean? Like, so just acknowledge it and move on. It doesn't mean that you're a terrible person. Like,
right. It's the elephant in the room. People like to act like it's not a giant elephant in here and just continue on moving around the room. No, at some point it's like, it is what it is, whether you admit it or not. This here exists. Right. So you might as well address it and figure out how to live with this elephant in here.
How to cope with it. And that goes along with, like, the coping with loneliness kind of thing, because if you are a person that, like, cannot be alone and you always have to be around people, that's a problem. It means you're not comfortable with yourself. So figure out what parts of yourself are you not comfortable with, that you have to have other people around you at all times.
And the answer is there whether you look for it or not. It still exists. So what are you gonna do? Just continue to run after Freddy Krueger the whole time, or are you gonna be like, I need to face why I feel like this? Yeah,
face it and kill it. It's the ego death for a reason, okay?
Yeah, because there's something better on the other side. It just depends. It's all up to you. It's easy to make excuses. Yeah. Because as harsh as it sounds, I can't fix something about myself. That's an excuse. Yeah. That's all it is. You making excuses.
Yes, and you can fix it. And it's always, now that I finally finished reading that book. I finished reading
The 4 Agreements.
Yeah, I finally.
That's good.
But anyway, it talks about it in there. It's like, okay, you have 4 agreements with yourself, but you're going to make small decisions every day to keep those 4 agreements. You're not going to keep them all the time. You know what I mean? Like, you're not going to be able to not take things personally all the time. But if you start out, like, one day, like, okay, I'm not going to take this personal, and then you do it again, and it becomes a pattern, and then it becomes a practice, and then it's just something that you do naturally. Yeah.
And then don't be afraid of slip-ups, because we beat ourselves down. We get it right 20 times, and then the 21st time I got it wrong. Oh, I messed up. So sometimes you got to be your biggest critic and go, so what? Now what? What, we about to travel back to yesterday and fix that?
Right.
All we can do is start from scratch today. Now we're going to try to get today's agreement. We can't fix yesterday's.
Yes, that is so true. We are our biggest critics, but we need to be our biggest cheerleaders, because there will be other people in your life too that will say the same thing to you, you know, that you're already beating yourself down about. So it's almost like you have to, like, hush the noise that is happening around you and give yourself grace, because that's what's going to allow you to evolve.
True story. Now, this is one of my favorite things that came out of being inside this cult, which is you learn to question everything.
Ooh, that is also one of my favorite things, not gonna lie. By
far, because being in this cult, and I heard somebody mention, a lot of former Jehovah's Witnesses, they just stopped being religious in the whole, and that's wrong. And what it is, a lot of people being a part of this cult told you this is the truth. Ain't nothing else out there. Don't even look at nothing else. Everything is wrong. So you wouldn't even attempt to look at any type of Christianity or Islam or anything else. It was all wrong. So once you realize the one thing you were told was the most important thing in the whole wide world is not true, it sparked something in you to go, I'm about to question everything. Like, I'm not about to get got again. I'm not about to be falling for something that I feel like my life should be dedicated to, my freedom, my health, my life in general, everything. So at some point you go, I'm about to question whatever comes to the table. I'm going to do a thorough research, because I'm not about to get bamboozled again. And what ends up happening, a lot of us don't just accept another religion. We examine everything from start to finish and go, nah. And after a pattern of that, you look at each religion and realize it's all the same blueprint.
Okay.
It's saying it's giving you what you can and can't do, or it's going to be consequences. And later on down the line, chances are once you're dead, then you get the reward. Yeah. And you go, I ain't fooling with none of this. And you go further back in history and realize religion is just some man-made stuff used to control people.
Yes, we were just talking about this. God is not divisive, okay? Whatever your idea is, if you feel like your religion is causing a divide,
something's wrong.
Something may be wrong.
If you got to pay somebody money to learn this information, the teacher himself is benefiting more than you are, something ain't right. Something's wrong.
Yes. And you start learning about different tactics that just any kind of government and any kind of group uses to get you like on board, you know? It basically just gives you your critical thinking back, and it gives you your freedom back, your freedom to choose, which is what all of us have. We all have the freedom to choose and to not be fear-mongered into believing like, oh, this is the only way that you will have a good life. It's not true. You know what I mean? Like, we are a walking testimony of that, I feel like, because the kind of life we live is peaceful, you know, and that's something that like Jehovah's Witnesses would act like you can't have without them, you know. You can't have a peaceful life without them. This is the best life ever. But in reality, it was not, because you're constantly being fear-mongered. You have all of these anxieties about the future. You have anxiety about your family not making it to paradise and Armageddon coming any day, any minute, like all of these things, and like constantly being bombarded by things that are happening in the news, because you want to stay up to date so that you can preach to other people and get them into the organization as well. And you use these avenues, like you use politics and you use different wars that are happening in the world. So you're very invested into like what is going on everywhere. In general. And
you also are in fear on if you gonna make it, because it's the it ain't the resurrection fact, it's the resurrection
hope.
It's the hope. So it's like we have make sure that we don't stumble, because we don't know if Jehovah will accept us. Well, dang, we doing all this work and we don't even know if we're gonna make it in. What's the point? And
it's not based on like the kind of relationship that you have with yourself or that you have with your higher power. It's more based on the looks of things. Like, does it look like you have a good relationship with God? Which that doesn't mean anything.
It doesn't.
Now, I'm sure this next one is something that like all of us can relate to in some way, shape, or fashion. Is just appreciating real connections that you end up making once you leave. Because, you know, like just having friends in a community, you know, people that you thought were your friends, family, whatever, and to just be able to be cut off so easily makes you feel like, okay, that relationship, that friendship meant nothing, because how could it mean something, you know? Because I'm sure with a lot of us, if the roles were reversed, like it wouldn't be that way, you know? Yeah,
that's facts. Even if you've been friends with somebody for 20-some years, even family, a sibling you had your whole life, and you waking up your child,
your
somebody,
mother,
all of this, like people that are the most important people to you, it feels like. And you didn't change feelings for these people. You changed feelings for a cult, an organization, and you may not even push your thoughts on them. You just go, I'm about to back away from this. And they will act like you never existed. And you realize like, well, dang, friend, what really is friendship? What really is family? And the people you come across then, when you come across people in this so-called world that are genuine and go, well, I don't care if you believe in that. You my friend. You appreciate, you have a much deeper connection with these people. Because it's like, dang, you treat me better than my own family. And we don't even have the same beliefs. Like you go to church and I don't, and you still want to hang out with me, or you still call to ask if I'm okay. Like that's the connections that we learn to appreciate after, you know, being in this cult.
And it's just a different kind of feeling, because it's like, okay, these people like you for who you are, not for what you're doing or what you believe in. You know, and
it shouldn't be that way.
No, it shouldn't be that way.
Our last point is you get a fresh start in life. That's, I want to say, out of all of them, of course, we already mentioned our favorite, but this is another one I feel like gets slept on, because it's looked at as a negative, like, oh man, where do I go from here? I'm lost. But at the same time, when I realized this wasn't the truth, because I already had been disfellowshipped, came back, and then I wasn't following the rules no more, and it just felt like this weight of like, man, I'm probably have to be disfellowshipped, or I'm gonna have to go through this all over again. And once you realize this ain't the truth, it's like a confusion, but also fresh air. Like, okay, I don't have to live by all this no more.
Yeah, it feels like you can breathe again.
You feel open.
Yes, and not just that, it's like all these paths have now been made open to you. Like all these other things that you immediately blocked out because of your beliefs or because of what the organization told you is right or wrong, those doors are now open. So if you have always dreamt of being, you know, a singer or an actor or a doctor, you know, whatever the case may be, like where before you closed that door for yourself, now it's open again. You're able to do that.
It is. You get to live life limitless now.
Yeah.
Because you had, like you mentioned, it was things somebody always pursued or fantasized about doing, but they wasn't allowed to do it because somebody else stopped them.
Yep.
And now the gates are wide open. You can do whatever you want to do. You're free.
Yes. And Christians, don't come into our comments talking about like, oh, that's Satan, that's this, that's that. You're controlled, because no, that's not what that means. You being able to pursue like things that you have always loved does not mean it's a blessing from Satan. Okay?
Yeah,
like,
Satan didn't bless people last time I checked.
Like, be for real.
Yeah, and first of all, we ain't even gonna go into detail. I've never seen Satan in my life. You haven't either. Nobody has ever seen this Satan character.
Okay.
We've heard about it, and just like a little kid has heard of the boogeyman. The boogeyman is real to a kid. You can't convince him otherwise. You have to check under the bed for him in a closet. And this is just a bunch of grown people scared of the boogeyman because somebody else said, all right, you ain't never died, and I ain't never died either. But when you die, if you don't do nothing, you know, that I'm telling you to do, Satan gonna be there. I ain't never seen him, but just know.
Yeah.
He gonna be there.
Yeah, and if you actually read the Bible, has he ever killed anybody?
I know who did kill people in the Bible.
Did he ever kill anybody?
Thousands of people.
No, okay? So, like, what are you really, like, afraid of, you know?
Yeah.
Just the fact of, like, giving that character belief is you being afraid of the unknown.
That's all it is. That's a good fact. I would like somebody in the Bible to let us know. We'll tally up God's murders and Satan's murders in the Bible.
Oh my gosh, you're gonna make them bad with this one. You're gonna make them bad with this one.
It's all fact, but that's pretty much some of the positives we want to. I'm sure y'all got some too. Drop them in the comments. Some positive that you might have got from being in this cult.
Yeah, that you have taken with you now into this new life.
Yep, the benefit. And also, the next video right after this is going to be all the negatives that came from being in this cult.
Yes, I'm sure we've touched on many of them, but like we're going to make a full video about it, because if you are dealing with these negatives, then likely that's what's keeping you stagnant. So this is going to be like the opposite version. And then once you identify what it is that's making you stagnant, then you'll be able to identify what it is that you can get rid of to make you grow. That's true. Okay. All right. So hit us on our Instagram at Awaken Truths IG. We got our new TikTok, and that is at Awaken Truths LLC. What else we got for them? We have our healing journals. We have the regular version and the Pimo version. And oh my gosh, that's right. We need to talk to Ava. I forgot about that. Oh, yeah. I don't know why that just came into my head. But anyway, we're going to do interviews on how that has helped people, you know, that journal, and how it's, you know, affected them in their life. Yeah, it's beneficial. Yes. So we've got our healing journals, and I think that's it. All right. Yeah. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will catch you guys in the next one. Peace.